But I wanted to talk about this, about the skipjack for just a second. And I haven't been catching nearly as many skipjack at all. I haven't been seeing people standing around the banks fishing for them like I used to. They're just not in this area. You used to catch skipjacks all the time, all year long. You just, certain times of the year more than others. But now it seems like they're gone, like they've been diminished. And you just wonder if that's got anything to do with, the commercial aspect of it. The fact that suddenly with the catfishing being so popular the last few years, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, that the demand for skipjack, skipjack is the primary bait that catfishermen want to use. It's long been known as the bait, the go-to bait for trophy catfish. So it got very popular to the point to where they have an economic value. Now, back in the day, when they set creel limits on the skipjack, I'm assuming that was years ago, there was no real economic value of the skipjack like there is now. There was no worry that people could come in and overharvest our lovely skipjack. But now there is. There is an extreme danger of that happening, and it could be happening right under our noses, and nothing we can do about it. It might be too late until they put further regulations on them. But right now, you have commercial fishermen that stand to make a lot of money on the skipjack, and anytime that money is being made, there's going to be a potential for abuse. And I'm not saying illegal abuse, but I'm just saying, hey, go out and catch as many as you can catch, because if you can sell as many as you can catch, then you definitely want to go catch as many as you can sell. So if now the skipjack are being known all over the country as the go-to bait for trophy catfish, if you want to be that next guy that holds up that slimy beast of 130 pounds and you're the man that gets to stand up and be proud, you want skipjack. So you're willing to pay a guy here in Tennessee to ship you some out to wherever you need it. You'll pay whatever it costs. There's an economic value there. And so somebody that can set up a nice little business catching skipjack, you could catch it yourself, you could have friends catching the skipjack for you. You could have people know that, hey, you're the skipjack guy, you'll pay X amount for them as long as it leaves enough meat on the table for a profit margin. And see, with that, then you got a chain or a network of guys catching them. And, all right, so potential for depleting the resource right there because of the economic value. But then this area is so full of trophy catfishermen that they're catching them for themselves and their friends. There's catfish tournaments all over the place. The lake is full of people chasing trophy catfish. So they're out catching their own skipjack. And when the skipjack run, so to speak, when they get close to the bank and they school up and they're in there chasing the shad, the banks will line up here locally with people catching skipjack. They're not eating them. They're either using them for bait, or they're selling them to the local bait and tackle shops or whatever. So the other thing is, now the skipjack seem to be getting hard to find. I see that. I'm watching videos all the time. Catfishermen can't get any skipjack. Can't get any skipjack. All right. What's your next thing? White bass. White bass are good. So what are catfishermen using now for bait? White bass. White bass. What am I no longer catching that many of? White bass. Alright, what other thing are catfishermen using for bait? Crappie. Well, are you allowed to use crappie for bait? Well, you are. The way I understand it, in the state of Tennessee, to use a crappie, you have to leave it whole, and the crappie has to be on the hook whole, so that if you get checked, the game warden can measure the crappie and say, okay, it's a legal 10-inch fish. So yeah, you can use it for bait. But if you take that crappie and you cut it up, and the game warden comes on along and he can't measure it, then that makes it not legal to fish with. Now, that was my understanding. I could be wrong about that. It could have changed. But I'm hearing a lot of catfishermen keep saying, yeah, crappie are good bait. We're catching crappie. And see, here's the problem with that is, if you get a few of these catfishermen that sort of, write this off as, hey, this is not a big deal, the TWRA, they don't really enforce it or something like that, and they sort of make it like, oh, it's all right to fish with crappie, then you're going to have a lot of people doing that. They're going to go out and they're just going to catch crappie thinking it's okay to do. And it may be as long as they're legally caught on a rod and reel. But see, the other thing is catfishermen have to chase their bait, so they're always chasing the shad with the cast net. They're always looking for the shad with a cast net. I always have that cast net, and it's very common when you get in the back of these coves certain times of the year, you'll catch crappie in the cast net. So if suddenly the catfisherman is in the back of the cove on a cold morning and using his cast net, and suddenly it's like, wow, I just got 5 crappie right there in my net, 5 legal crappie. They're going in the live well. All you have to do is set your little crappie rod out with a jig on it and claim you caught them on a rod and reel. You don't think there's some fishermen would do that? I think there's plenty of fishermen that would do that. We've seen the cheaters get caught before, and there's plenty more cheaters out there that don't mind skirting around rules and regulations, and that's on them, that's not me. I'm just saying the wording that I'm hearing on videos from catfishermen, the way they're doing it is sounding like they know that they may be skirting the line as far as legally harvesting a crappie and then cutting him up into cut bait where he's unidentifiable. You could say, oh, that's a white bass, or oh, that's a whatever. So the other thing is, since the skipjack are not as available, the next best thing sometimes are like threadfin shad and gizzard shad. So guess what? They're also selling a global market now. You can get freeze-dried threadfin shad, freeze-dried gizzard shad straight from the Tennessee River. As a matter of fact, I think it was year before last, out on Poland Creek, I saw this real fancy boat out there. Guys had a real big cast net, and they spent a lot of time out there, huge bait tank, and I'm assuming they were getting gizzard and threadfin shad for the most part. But after checking some photos I made, them guys was from South Carolina. They had South Carolina boat registration and tags, and so they come all the way from South Carolina to get threadfin gizzard shad, to spend hours to get something that they're going to commercially take from the state of Tennessee and go take back to South Carolina and sell and make money. Why? Because there's a big market for that stuff right now. Big market. Around those big lakes in South Carolina where they've already been wiped out probably, and it's hard to get bait. That's why they're coming here. Now, why would you leave South Carolina to come to get threadfin shad and gizzard shad from Tennessee when you should just get them from your own state? Well, because you can't get them from your own state. They've been wiped out. And so that's what we're facing here. And I think personally, I think the TWRA needs to look and go, when were the creel limits for threadfin, gizzard shad, skipjack, all that put into place? And they were put into place based on the expectations of what they thought might be harvestable fish. How many people are going to be coming in from South Carolina and harvesting fish 20 years ago or 30 years ago, whenever the creel limits were set? Not very many, not a worry, not a concern. Well, now that catfishing is such a tremendous sport now, and people are having trouble getting bait, and they're coming from other states because our reservoirs are full of these fish. But if they do this on a regular basis, day in, day out, over a period of time, with everyone here in the state doing the same thing, is that not going to diminish the resource? And that's what drives this lake, or the shad, the threadfin shad, the gizzard shad. That's what everything feeds on out there, plus the skipjack. So once those populations go down, then what happens to the rest of the fish? Those populations are probably going to go down as well. It affects the whole food chain. And see, that's why, maybe nothing needs to be done. Maybe there's plenty of fish to go around, and you could never, over harvest, but I don't believe that's true though, and simply because they can even over harvest in the oceans. You think about how big the ocean is. They over harvest fish in the ocean all the time. They've depleted resources there, and lakes can be fished out. They can be depleted. So, you know, if we want to protect our fishery, we have to report back, hey, what's going on? And we either catching fish or we not. And they need to do some creel surveys at a certain point, and they do. But